everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sacred Femme Alchemy for the Shakti Soul Session series. Super excited to be here, and today has been a day. I was doing a podcast interview with Tanya from Rainbow. The products they sell, tinctures, mushroom tinctures, and it was just such a beautiful conversation. But she and I were just talking about how emotional this week has been. I kind of think it's just there is residual effects of things that have happened from last week, and just for me personally, it's been very emotional. I talked about in my last episode how things have just been a little bit tender for me lately, and it reminds me of this idea of asking for help, or how it used to be very difficult for me to ask for help or share with other people what is going on, when I need support, when I need emotional support, or, just really sharing vulnerably what's going on with me. And it was sparked from a conversation that I had earlier. I was doing an EFT tapping session, and this particular challenge came up, this idea of asking for help. And I know a lot of us go through this. And so today I'm going to dive deep on sharing my story of how I went from being the independent woman, not wanting to be a burden, to really owning and sharing and asking for that emotional support when I needed it, and believing that I could ask for help, and that it didn't mean that I wasn't perfect. And so I'm super excited to dive into this. And so I can just start back from, the very beginning. I always kept to myself as a young kid. And I just didn't feel like I wanted to burden my parents with anything. And you'll even, if you talk to them, they'll say, oh yeah, Lisa was a great kid. She played by herself all the time. My sister, on the other hand, she always loved wanting to hang out with my mom. And so she was considered more of the needy baby, but I was always independent. And it's something that I learned to use as armor, as a way of protecting myself, that if I don't need any help, if I don't show you that I don't need any help, I can take care of myself, I can do things on my own, then, it's kind of complex. It was like, I won't draw attention to me. I also won't show any of my vulnerability, which makes me, penetrable to being this person that's weak. So I prided myself a lot on this notion of knowing how to do things on my own. And so whether it was, going off to university on my own, whether it was moving to New York and not knowing anybody, just all these milestones, all these achievements that I applauded myself on of, okay, let me just do this on my own. And it allowed me to just have this tough exterior. And when I was able to focus on taking care of myself, being really good at it, what it allowed me to do was play this role of caretaker for other people. Because it showed in my romantic relationships as being with people who couldn't take care of themselves. And so I took on this role of being the caretaker. I took on the role of being responsible. Not just being responsible for myself, but being responsible for other people, or feeling the pressure that I had to be responsible for others. And so it was like, I can't fall apart because I need to be strong for you. I'm going to be worried about what's going to happen to everyone else before I worry about myself. And as a result of that, I picked and attracted partners who didn't know how to take care of themselves, and honestly weren't necessarily present for me. And I was okay with that. I was okay with having half-hearted relationships, half-hearted partnerships of people who never fully showed up, whether it was in a physical capacity, whether it was an emotional capacity. And I did have that pattern of attracting and magnetizing people that couldn't fully be in the relationship. And so sometimes I had friendships with people who would be totally invested in my life. We would be hanging out all the time, but then there will be moments of spurts where I wouldn't hear from them, And then same with relationships. I was involved with someone who was active in their addiction. And there would be times when I did not know where he physically was, and by me not focusing on other things in my life, by me focusing on him, allowed me to not be with that underpinning and that feeling of, wow, I'm choosing people that cannot show up in their life for me. And so it allowed me to just be the strong person. It allowed me to be the helper. It allowed me to be the person that felt like I could be counted on, that I could be reliable. And most of all, it felt like I had purpose. And so my only purpose was learning how to show up for other people, learning to pick up the pieces for other people. And that's what I became known as in my relationships. And people called me loyal. My ex used to say, "You're so loyal." It's like loyal for staying around in a shitty relationship where I didn't get anything back. That's not the type of loyalty I want someone to identify me as. That's not something to be proud about. It's not, I'm not proud of staying in a relationship where I was getting crumbs. That's not okay with me today. And nor would I ever want to be in a relationship like that. I could spot it just like that, how people show up. Because to me, I care more about integrity. I care more about people doing what they're going to say. There's a reason why people say watch people's actions, not what they say, because people can feed you so much bullshit. You can say anything. You can say anything to anybody and people will believe it, right? It's called converting content. And so, when I really think about it, that's what I built my whole identity on. And that's what fed me, was just being in this idea of thinking that I had purpose in that. And I was okay with that. I was okay with living a small life. I was okay with being someone else's caretaker. And eventually what started to happen was my sense of independence became something that was a detriment. It was that thing that prevented me from moving forward with how I felt about myself and really liking myself. And so I had a lot of shame. I spiraled into a lot of shame because I knew that I needed to be taken care of too. And I didn't want to take care of someone else. I didn't want to be someone else's mother. It wasn't my job to be a grown man's mother. And if they do treat you like that, then you should probably leave the relationship and really reflect and take a look at that. What are you getting out of it? And the truth was, I just didn't know how to ask for help either. I was so used to being in that role of being the one that everyone turns to, being the one that can actually pick up the pieces, being the one that people called on, being the responsible one, being the reliable one. And it just got really exhausting. And I lost myself in that relationship. And I had a breaking point. And I realized I just didn't want to do it anymore. And so I ended that relationship. It was a very dramatic ending. And I swore to myself that I would never, ever be in that dynamic again. Because you see, I wanted someone to need me. And that's not love. You shouldn't need someone to need you, right? It just created this hole in my life of being needed because I didn't know how to find purpose within myself. I didn't know how to find purpose within my life. And today I find purpose in my life by sharing these stories. I have many stories of my transformation, of someone who cared more about other people rather than myself, of being this person who was able to change. And it didn't happen overnight. There were still people after my ex that I dated where I still attracted the same people. And I said, okay, looking for the signs. I know the signs now. This role seems familiar for me. And I don't want to be someone's mother in a relationship. I don't want to have to suppress my needs in order to make sure that everyone's okay. I want to have the confidence to say what's going on with me. I want to have the confidence to say what I will and I won't stand for. And so when you start to stand in your light, when you start to have the confidence to put yourself first, to take care of yourself first before worrying about others, that's when your inner power and empowerment starts to arise. You start to realize, wow, I'm worthy. And it's a slow burn. You have all these people trying to tell you that it's going to happen fast. But when it comes to this type of work, to truly believing that you are worthy, because it stems from you, when you learn to feel that, then those relationships that are built on codependency and wanting to be caretakers don't fall in your field. They're not even close to your field energetically because you're not emitting that energy. You can spot bullshit a mile away. And so if you find yourself in a situation where it's hard to set those boundaries, where it's easy to allow others to eclipse your needs, or you helping others is greater than you asking for help, just know that you have the capability, you have the possibility to change. You're able to make those changes. And it comes from learning to know little by little and kind of uncovering and going through the work and doing the work, whether it's tapping, whether it's Kundalini yoga, whether it's other different reflection and self-inquiry practices. You have the ability to change that. You have the ability to choose different thoughts, right? A lot of this is subconscious. A lot of this is patterning that was, transferred to us from family, friendship dynamics, and learning how to have new relationships and learning to respond in different ways and consciously choosing to have different dynamics with people in your life, you start to notice and have examples and create your own blueprint of what feels good for you, and you get to take it on. And the important part is having awareness around it. Bringing awareness to what it is that you want to change and understanding where it's come from. How does it play out in your life, right? So today I want you to really think about this reflection of what is your relationship to asking for support? What is your relationship to supporting others? Because it goes both ways, right? Is it healthy? Are you leaning more towards wanting to take care of others before your own needs? Or is it maybe considered selfish, right? Where you always just focus on me. And so I really want you to dive into that and find out for yourself any insights. And if you want to share with me in the comments what you think about this episode, how it landed for you, how your relationship to help is and asking for support is in this moment, because you do matter. You 100% matter, and you are not a burden. And if you don't believe that, I'm going to tell you that you are not. You have the right to ask for help. You have the right to ask for emotional support. And just because you do doesn't mean you're selfish. It just goes back to the basics of asking for what you need and allowing the other person to connect to their own boundaries and tell you whether or not they can fulfill that need. That's giving people sovereignty. That's giving people agency to respond in a way that feels good to them. And so if they say they can't, then they're taking care of themselves. And by you expressing what you want, you're taking care of yourself. And so it becomes this beautiful opportunity to really share our truths. And when we share our truth, when we share what's going on really deep down inside of us, it means that we're connected to our heart, we're connected to our soul. And when we're connected to those things, then we're able to express it and call in those healthier, loving relationships in our life that isn't based on imbalance, you taking care of the other person more than they're giving back to you. And as you reflect on those different insights that come up for you, if you want to dive more and more into this work, I love, love, love supporting you. Just as how you might need emotional support, you need that guidance, and you need that help, I am here for you. And I offer that in my one-on-one coaching sessions. It's a beautiful 4-month container where we really get to dive deep and look at all of these patterns, all of these core things that we need to heal that are obstructing us from the relationships, from those healthy, loving, next level aligned relationships that bring so much joy in our life, because we're coming from a place of love where we know ourselves and we know our worth. I will leave the link in the show notes to book a call with me. But thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to hearing all of your insights. I look forward to helping you on a one-on-one capacity, and I will see you all tomorrow. Sat Nam.